Stoner didn't just check the box in her debut marathon, she etched her name in the record book. Her 2-hour, 28-minute, 43-second performance at the Marathon Project back in 2020 was the fastest ever by an American woman under the age of 25. Not a bad way to start a marathon career. Now she's back for a second crack at the Marathon Project, and a whole lot has changed in the last 5 years, including winning a U.S. championship in the marathon, a new last name thanks to her marriage to Paige Wood, and a new title, perhaps the most important one of all, Mom. Welcome to Inside the Marathon Project, the podcast in collaboration with our partners at FloTrack that goes inside the stories of the athletes, organizers, and dreamers shaping one of the most unique marathons on the race calendar. The second edition is happening in Chandler, Arizona, December 20th. With the Gold Wave, the pros are going to run December 21st. I'm your host, Steve Sievert, and I'm going to be joined along the way by TMP co-founder and CEO Ben Rosario. And today's guest is indeed the aforementioned Paige Wood, member of the HOKA NAZ Elite squad based in Flagstaff, Arizona. Paige, thanks so much for taking some time today and joining us on Inside TMP.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be returning to Chandler this December, 5 years later. This will be my fifth marathon, 5 years later.
Can't wait to get into all things TMP, but I want to start with this. I want to start with storytelling and your decision to share your story in a new documentary that followed you and your HOKA Elite teammate, Mercy Chellingot, in your approach and build up to the Ottawa Marathon. And that documentary premiered last month in Flagstaff. It's available to watch online now. What do you hope viewers take away from watching you and Mercy?
Yeah, I think that, motherhood doesn't have to be the end of pursuing your dreams, probably is the biggest takeaway. And, Mercy and I's motherhood journeys have looked a little bit different, but I think, at the core, all moms can relate to each other. We all have that deep love for our child, and that's a big part of what motivates us and drives us. And, certainly is keeping us going in the sport. But I think, for sure, just that, moms can pursue their dreams at a very high level. And I think, if anything, it's only making us better.
One of the themes that jumped off the screen in that documentary was the bond that you're forging with Mercy. What specifically about the relationship inspired the title of the documentary, which is Invisible String?
Yeah, I think, exactly that we have this tie of motherhood, but, we've spent majority of our life, miles and miles, thousands of miles apart, and certainly didn't know of each other till I saw her on the collegiate scene a few years ago. But there's that relatability there of becoming moms, and being professional runners. And like I said, motherhood being a big part of now what is driving us. And your identity shifts, I think, a lot when you become a mom, and just your perspective and outlook on things. So I think we understand each other's motivations, just really connect deeply on that level.
Now, the original plan was for you and Mercy to train together, toe the line together at the Ottawa Marathon back in May. And that was part of the interesting aspect of both of your stories. There were going to be unique circumstances surrounding that. It was going to be your first marathon postpartum. It was going to be Mercy's debut. But, you know how plans go. So sometimes they don't actually go according to plan. So you had a bout with some illness in March, and that ultimately led to you scrapping Ottawa. What had to change in your mindset? What had to change in your training to deal with that change up and ultimately move on to the next step?
Yeah, it was tough. I was really looking forward to doing Ottawa with her. That had been the plan for a couple months, that had been on the schedule. And, I think the whole build up from day one, coming back from having Nolan, was like, okay, like there are little races along the way, but getting back to the marathon was like ultimately what I was most excited about. And I think towards the end of 2024, I'd started to feel like myself again and was gaining momentum and had run a good half in Houston and was really looking forward to getting into marathon training finally. So it was really tough when I got the flu like middle of February, and then just like right after that, I think that really like kicked my immune system pretty hard. Like that was the flu. It was a rough. I haven't had the flu in forever, and it was not fun. But yeah, then I had just kind of like cold after that, and yeah, my son had started daycare at the end of January because our thinking had been we had just had a sitter for a couple hours a day before that coming to the house. And with starting marathon training, the thought was like, okay, let's actually get him in daycare now. Like I'm going to need that extra recovery time. And then in reality, it didn't work out because I just was sick nonstop. But anyways, then I think early April was when we pulled him. We actually ended up pulling him from daycare because I was like, this isn't working. And one of my good friends, she has a little boy the same age as my son, and she stepped up big time, was like, you know what, I'll watch him for you. And that, allowed me to remain healthy through grandma's. And I slowly started like to find that momentum again. And then certainly by Ottawa, when I helped Mercy out there, I was like, okay, we're in a good spot. And I was really excited for grandma's a month later, was feeling confident again and knew I was ready to go and felt like I was definitely in PR shape.
So you mentioned you went along to Ottawa anyway, and you actually helped pace Mercy in that race. Mm-hmm. Was that something that you lobbied to do, or was that suggested by your coach, Jack Mullaney?
Yeah, actually, like when we arrived in Ottawa, the plan had still been for me to do the half. I think like Jack had thought, it'd still be really nice for you to go along with Mercy, just to be there for support, encourage her. I think Mercy was, as most of us are, pretty nervous going into the first one. I just think he thought, having a buddy would be good for her. And I was going to go and do the half and just make it a really good workout, kind of long run. And then when we got there, I was thinking about it more, and I was like, you know what, like the half field wasn't going to be competitive. There really was no elite field. So I was like, I think it'd be more fun and I could probably be more beneficial for Mercy for me to hop in the actual marathon with her. Fortunately, the race coordinators at Ottawa were super, super kind about allowing me to make that last minute change. And of course, asked Mercy, is that something you would want me to do? And she was like, yes, please. Like, was really excited about that. And also thought it'd be a great way for me to practice I wouldn't have been able to take any nutrition doing the half. So that was another, like, super grateful that they allowed me to actually take bottles and get to practice that. Because it had been a while. It had been 2.5 years since my last one. And of course, you practice it in training, but I think it's a little different, when it's the actual race. So that was a huge benefit, as well as to get to practice taking in nutrition.
And Mercy had a heck of a day. She set an NAZ Elite team record, 2:23:33. You helped pace her a little bit. So there was a lot actually that was gained from that. She benefited from having you as a bit of a pacer, and you're practicing the bottles and the transitions going through the elite fluid areas. How was that to kind of be in a race with a teammate, doing some pacing, and ultimately she goes on to produce that performance? How did that feel, playing kind of a supporting cast role?
It was super exciting. I mean, like, what better way to be a part of it and support her than literally be, right next to her, stride for stride. And I think the race went out initially a little hot, like the pacers, they had been assigned, I think they were assigned 2:23 pace. And we were actually on 2:22 pace the whole first half. And I could feel it. I was like, I think like this is a little quicker than what Jack said it was going to be. So I was kind of checking in with her, like trying to see how she was feeling, making sure she wasn't panicking. But she stayed super calm. And honestly, she was really smart. I think there was one part where like near halfway where there's a little bit of a surge happened, and she hung back just a little bit. So when I actually dropped out at 26K, she was maybe 20 seconds behind the leaders at that point. But I mean, clearly that played to her favor, because it wasn't long after that she rolled up on them and took the lead. And yeah, I think she ended up winning by like 5 minutes. So, I mean, she looked like a veteran out there. She was awesome.
Yeah, Paige, I'll jump in. When you were pacing her and then you stopped, I was watching the race online. It was good coverage, really good coverage. And you could see then later in the race, I could see you on the side of the road, cheering and sort of running alongside in the grass like we all do when we're cheering for our friends, our family, our athletes, whoever, right? Teammates. And I just thought that was so cool. I thought it was really, really cool. It reminded me a lot of a special moment in NAZ history when our guys ran the Frankfurt Marathon back in 2017. And it was Scott Fauble's debut. And Scott Smith beat him and ran a PR, which was 2:12, which was a fast time at the time, And so Scott ran 2:12. And then instead of celebrating and, bending over and whatever you do after a marathon, the first thing he did was turn around and wait for Fauble, because Fauble was only like 20 seconds back. And then they had this big hug after Faub's finished. And that was always a really special moment to me. And you running along the grass, cheering for Mercy, reminded me of that moment.
Yeah, that's super special. Again, like I would have loved to have done the full thing with her, but I think the next best thing was running a little over half with her, and then, yeah, being able to run alongside as she neared the finish there, and then give her a big hug as soon as she crossed the finish. It was, yeah, super sweet.
You mentioned earlier how the pivot ended up being Grandma's in Duluth, Minnesota in June, and you're going into race week. I think you're feeling good. You've recovered from the illness. Training's going well. And initially, race week, the weather's looking pretty good. High 50s, maybe low 60s. And then it starts to not look so good, right? It's going to be warm. It's going to be humid. They're calling for maybe thunderstorms. The start of the race ends up getting delayed. I mean, my gosh, a lot is going on that you have to process. And that's coming on the heels of having to change the original plan to begin with, going into Ottawa and now Grandma's. So how do you stay mentally dialed in? How do you stay positive going to the starting line when you've had to deal with a lot that's been thrown at you over the last few months and now into race week?
Yeah, I think initially I was definitely pretty frustrated and bummed. And it's just, Grandma's is known for consistently having really great weather. It's definitely part of why we chose that race. And yeah, since it has been such a long time, I was looking forward to, hopefully taking a good chunk of time off my PR. And so, yeah, it was definitely initially I was really bummed, but I had to very quickly just shift my mindset and be like, okay, but this is still a race, and that's very exciting, like that, just because it's probably not going to be a fast day out there. Like, I still had so much excitement and gratitude for yeah, but we still are going to go out there and see who can get to the finish first. And I still get to do this. And yeah, I think I was also thinking odds are I'm going to face conditions like this again in the future. So this is going to be a good learning, experience for me, and just see how I can hold up in the conditions, and yeah, practice running smart while also trying to be competitive and try to win this thing. So I think I was very quickly able to get over the fact that, okay, yeah, probably not going to be a PR day, but there's still a lot to be excited about.
You mentioned something, the mindset or the attitude of you get to do this. And I think that's so important in many aspects of life when you're powering through adversity. You look at that opportunity as, hey, I get to run this marathon. And for you, it was a long time coming in terms of getting back into marathoning. Is that get to mindset something that you have to continually focus on? Or is that, you think, after many years of running, hardwired into your overall outlook about things?
I think the longer I've been in the sport, the more it's at the front of my mind that it's like I'm lucky that anytime you get to race, you should be super grateful that you're getting to line up and you're healthy, and you hope that you get many more opportunities in the future, but you just never know, right? And injuries happen, illness happens, and so I think the longer I'm in the sport, the more I recognize just what a privilege and blessing it is. Like every start line, getting a chance to be out there, I'm like, I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity, still be doing this. It's a very, very unique job, and there's a lot of people out there who wish they were doing what we were doing. So I think my gratitude over the years has grown.
I think that's a great mindset. Every starting line is a gift. That could be the takeaway from that mindset for sure. So you land on the podium, third place, 2:30 and bits. How did you feel about that performance?
Yeah, for the most part, I was happy with it. I felt like I definitely did everything I could out there. I don't know that I would have really done anything differently. The woman who won, she took off a little bit faster than the rest of us had from the start, and I definitely think that was the right decision to hang back. And I did pretty much exactly what Jack had told me to do, which was the original plan in good conditions had been go through halfway around 72 minutes. We decided let's push it back about a minute and shoot for 73. And I think that's exactly around where I came through halfway, and it felt really comfortable. Like those early miles, I kept checking in with myself and had talked to Aubrey and McKenna just kind of about their game plan, what they were thinking. I think we had all had pretty similar time goals going in and felt similar about what kind of adjustment, probably 5 to 10 seconds per mile slower than what we thought we were going to be capable of running. I felt really, really comfortable, which is what kind of made the second half so frustrating, because you're just like, what happened? Normally when you're feeling that comfortable in a marathon, you should be able to run the second half certainly as fast, if not faster. And so I think humidity, affects everyone a little differently. Unfortunately, I didn't do any prep for it. I think, hindsight, of course, I would have gone back and done some saunaing and tried to prepare more for that weather, but we just weren't expecting that. So it really hadn't been top of mind. I think given how I prepared and my prior experiences in humidity, I have kind of struggled in some of the more humid races I've run in the past. So I think I was pretty proud of myself for finishing and feeling like I got the most out of myself that I could, making adjustments that we thought were smart and would hopefully set me up for, running as best I could on the day. And ultimately, of course, I wish I could have hung in there for second or, tried to be there reeling in first place towards the end. But yeah, that wasn't reality on the day. I know I did everything I could, and I think third was the best that I was going to finish that day.
Well, the good news is I think Ben's going to give you a low humidity guarantee for the marathon project in December, at least. I've got my fingers crossed on that one. So as you talked about, this was going to be, and it was your first marathon back after childbirth. How would you describe that journey from the new addition to your family back into elite level training and then ultimately back on the starting line of a marathon?
Yeah, I'm really fortunate. I feel like I had a lot of women to look to, especially even just in Flagstaff, former teammates who are mothers and have been through the process once, if not twice. Our coach, Jenna Reedon, she's now a 2-time mother, and she has coached many women who have gone through pregnancy and the postpartum. And so I just feel really blessed that I had all those women to go to, because certainly I don't even know how many questions, whether it was, return to running related or just like, how do I get this kid to sleep or, anything baby related. I think first time moms, you don't know what to ask until you're in it. And then all of a sudden you have 100 questions. I think I really leaned on the women around me, and that, helped tremendously. And then I tried to be really patient. I was fortunate that, HOKA didn't put any pressure on me to return. I didn't have any deadline or timeline of you got to be back by this day. So we tried to be smart about it. I think that's something that Jenna really has seen in the past. Maybe like that was her biggest takeaway of like, okay, if we have time to not rush this, like, she's seen some women get injured because they've tried to come back a little too quickly. So yeah, we just took our time, and I really tried to listen to my body. And it was definitely frustrating at times, because there were definitely days where I was like, I used to be able to run 90 to 100 miles a week, no problem, and now all of a sudden like 70 feels like a lot. And it's like, it just takes a lot of patience, right? But I really didn't want to get injured. So, yeah, I really tried to listen to my body as best as I could. And, I think up till prior to getting all that sickness, we really hadn't had any setbacks. So, I think we did things pretty well. And yeah, that would be the only thing I would have probably done differently, was just not send him to daycare in the middle of January.
Sounds like you've gotten some great guidance along the way. You've got a strong support system around you. But Team Wood is now 3 in your household, and that's the big addition, going from 2 to 3. How have you had to make adjustments to your day to manage your training and get those miles in?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of communication between Cody and I, my husband, just like, yeah, he is super, super supportive. And certainly this wouldn't be possible without his help. Just time management, right? There's no procrastination these days. It's get everything done when you have the time to get it done. Nap when he naps, it's like a lot of your day revolves around the kid's schedule. But I think, it's just made me more intentional. And, my running time is almost always my only alone time during the day, or my social time of the day. So kind of appreciate it even more sometimes in that regard. But yeah, I think it's just being very organized and having the support, like I said, from Cody, that's really made it possible.
Well, I want to take you back to your running roots and understand a bit more about how you fell in love with running. Because if I have this right, you started running because of a boy. Is that correct? You were a soccer player, but then you mentioned your husband, Cody. There was this crush, right? Did you really join the cross-country team because of a boy?
That is true. Yep. I loved soccer. And I had done a little bit of like youth track and field. I did like the Hershey track and field program. But I had no idea what cross country was until, when I was going into 7th grade. My mom, someone had approached her and was like, she should really try cross country this year. So she explained it to me. And I was like, that sounds pretty silly. I don't really get why people would want to do that. I'll just stick to soccer. But I think, a couple of days later, I had found out that Cody was doing it. And I had a big crush on him at the time. So that was my incentive to give it a try.
Well, okay, so you might have joined because of a boy, but it turns out, you were pretty good, right? You went to Pottsville area high school in Pennsylvania and won some championships and set some records. Was it during those high school days where you started to think about, well, okay, this running thing may be something to pursue into college and down the line? Did you have those aspirations as you began to enjoy running more?
Yeah, certainly. I think it took a little bit of time for me to really fall in love with it. I think for a little while there, I was still like all about soccer. And that was like my first love. And it was really hard for me to give that up. It's where a lot of my best friends were. So yeah, I had a hard time fully transitioning to running. But then I would say, by the time I was a junior or senior in high school, I was pretty all in and had fallen in love with the sport.
And you started your college career at Lipscomb, but then transferred to Syracuse, and that's really where your career started to take off. I mean, multiple time ACC champion, multiple time All-American, and that was over multiple distances. I mean, cross country, you did the steeple, the 5,000, and the 10. And, I think being a college athlete at an elite level is, in many respects, a test of resilience, because you're managing a lot in your life. You're trying to train at a high level. And resilience is obviously a characteristic that you need to be a successful marathoner. As you were going through your college experience, did you feel like the marathon was going to be your distance sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I thought probably wouldn't be too long after I graduated that I would give the marathon a try. Certainly my college coach, Coach Bell, always told me the marathon's going to be it for you. And then I ended up doing it a little sooner than I probably thought I would. COVID, that 2020 year was really my first year as a pro. And it was really disappointing not having any races for so long. And it's hard to stay motivated in training, right, when there's nothing on the calendar. So when the marathon project popped up, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. Like, why not give it a shot now? And I was just really excited about having something to train for. And Coach Fox, my coach at the time, was like, yeah, this is going to be your event, so you might as well get started.
Do you think if it weren't for the pandemic that you might not have started in the marathon as early as you did?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how much longer I would have waited, but I have a feeling it would have been probably another year or two, at least.
Interesting. What was that experience like, going to the starting line in those unusual circumstances in Chandler during the pandemic? So you're not only dealing with those unusual times, but this is your first marathon. The marathon for the first time can be incredibly intimidating. What was your mindset going to the starting line that day?
I was definitely pretty nervous. Yeah, I think it's hard not to be, right? It's like very daunting, the distance. And Coach Fox's training is pretty conservative. So I think like my longest tempo going into that had been 9 miles, the longest long run around 21 miles. I'd put in some pretty decent mileage. I think I'd done a couple 100-mile weeks. But as far as the overall like workout volume and long runs, like it really wasn't anything crazy. So it was kind of like, okay, like I said, longest time I've spent trying to like put in this amount of effort. I guess I did do 1/2 marathon before it, so that gave me a little boost in confidence. But yeah, I certainly hadn't touched doing marathon pace for anywhere near 26 miles. So was definitely pleasantly surprised that I was able to not only finish, but feel really strong the whole way through.
And going in, did you have a specific time objective?
I think everything was telling us that I should be able to run 5:40 pace. Coach Fox definitely felt very certain that I should be able to handle that. And so having the pace groups, that made it easy to just say, okay, yeah, this is going to be your group. It was a little interesting because I think super shoes were just, pretty new at the time. And we didn't spend a ton of time in them before the race. The couple times that I did use them, it was like, oh, holy cow, like this, these things are legit. Like everything we're hearing about, they probably a couple seconds per mile, are boosting you a good bit over the course of a marathon. So, I think with also having the addition of wearing the super shoes for the race, that I think also helped me feel okay. Like if I have these on, then I think, we've certainly seen over time, it's just, people are saying it's running a marathon in those is just not, it's not what it used to be. Right. So I think because that's maybe why I was able to get away with how conservative my training was to an extent, because your body just doesn't break down the way it used to in those old school racing flats.
Yeah, am I the only one who misses saying racing flats? I mean, I don't know, super shoes just it doesn't roll off the tongue like, let me grab my racing flats. I think I miss those. So an incredible debut. You set that U25 record. What did you take away from that experience that ultimately propelled you to, very shortly afterward, you set that PR, 2:26:02, you win the 2022 US Championship in the marathon. How did the TMP experience set you up for taking it up a level at that national championship race?
Yeah, I just think I just got a lot of confidence from that being my first experience and knowing, okay, like if this, this was my first one and a very conservative build, like certainly I have a lot of room to grow here. But yeah, I think just it's really important to have your first one be a positive experience. So I'm really grateful that I had such a great experience there, and it got me excited about just pursuing the event and seeing what I could do down the road.
So back to the marathon project and looking ahead to this December, what excites you most about taking another crack at a race and a race course now that you know really well?
Yeah, I'm just excited to have the opportunity to run fast, and I don't know exactly what the field looks like yet, but hopefully it'll be competitive as well. And there's just so few opportunities I think that exist, especially here in the States, where we can run like chase fast times and compete. So I think it's just we need an event like this where yeah, we can go, have that guaranteed, like you said, should be pretty guaranteed good weather, have a fast course, and yeah, hopefully have a competitive race as well. And it'll just be super fun because like I said, it's very rare to have that kind of opportunity. So I don't know, when I'll get that chance again. So really looking forward to it.
Now, I don't want you to tip your hand specifically about your strategy, but generally speaking, is there anything that you're doing to take advantage of the race course, or anything that you're tweaking in your training to acclimate to the circuit course and make sure that you are ready to run really fast that day?
Not necessarily. I imagine we'll spend a lot of time in Camp Verde in October, November, and December, it's great. Like it's still a little too hot this time of year to go down there, but very soon here it'll be getting cool enough that we can get down there. And for those who aren't familiar, Camp Verde is a little over 3,000 feet, so fairly close to sea level, and we can get down there and run really like race specific stuff. And the loop we do down there it's got like two small hills, but for the most part, it's very flat. And I think that's kind of the perfect place to practice. And just, it's very, very dry, similar climate to Phoenix. So I imagine, yeah, we'll probably spend a good bit of time there. But yeah, the course is pretty straightforward. So I don't think you need to do anything fancy really to prepare.
All right, so some good workouts planned in Camp Verde. Also want to ask you a little bit about utilizing races to help prep for your A race. You won the Wyoming Valley 10-miler back at the end of August, and you've done that now a couple of times in builds. How often do you use those shorter races as part of your prep to lead into your A race, in this case, TMP?
Yeah, I wanted to get at least a race or two in before we get into the bulk of marathon training. I think just in the past, once I get within like 6 weeks of race day, I'm usually pretty fatigued, and any racing that I do is kind of more of a workout. And I don't expect to feel necessarily like sharp or fresh. So yeah, I think that's part of the marathon that I don't like necessarily love, is just like how many weeks you have to spend just really dedicated to preparing for the distance. So I really wanted to, like I said, before I really get into the true marathon block, get in a race or two where I can feel sharp. And I think doing some shorter, faster racing like that sets you up well for then when you do get into marathon training. It always makes marathon pace feel a lot more relaxed.
Paige, I was going to jump in with two things. Number one, that run you had at Wyoming Valley, to Steve's point, was really good. Do you feel like you're in a good spot?
I do, yeah. I was a little bit surprised how comfortable like that kind of, I was right in that like 5:15 to 5:20 for majority of the race. And um, yeah, it was funny because I took off with a pack of guys and or I said to them, what pace are you guys trying to run? And they said 5:20s and I said, me too. And then I just took off and like was looking at my watch. I was like, okay, well, I just lied to them because I was running more like 5:15s. But yeah, I was really surprised how smooth that felt, just coming off of, because I took a little bit of a break after grandma's. And so really only had a couple weeks of training under my belt. So yeah, I was just excited that that was my starting point for this fall.
And then my other question was, going back to the marathon project, you had mentioned feeling nervous at the line, in 2020. And if you weren't there, I think as an outsider, you would think, well, how could you feel nervous with the COVID stuff and the, not having fans there and all that? But I would say it was still a decent atmosphere. Like it still had a cool feel to it. I think it was because of the weather being so nice and like such a good field. And even that sprinkling of just friends and family and agents and coaches on the sideline, like had a cool feel to it. Do you anticipate that being sort of tenfold this time around?
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. I think it still had a lot of excitement to it. And yeah, I have thought about that a couple times now. Like, okay, yeah, what is this going to feel like with an actual crowd there? And it's like hard to imagine because, yeah, it was like so few people there and it's going to be a really different experience. But yeah, it gets me very excited because, as you said, yeah, it was still really cool in 2020. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a really special day.
Well, there you
What is
go. If you're listening and you're running, you know what you're in for.
Really looking forward to it, that's for sure. I want to talk a little bit about NAZ Elite and your experience so far with that group. The team has undergone some changes from a roster perspective, certainly coaching. My co-host knows a little bit about that. How would you describe the current culture and team dynamic within the group right now?
I think we have a really great group. I think the people who are on the team now are people who really want to be here and really believe in what Jack is doing with us. And we've all gotten really close. I think most of the people who are on the team now have been here for some time, and it has started to feel like family. Once you're showing up with these people every day for months or years. So yeah, I think we're in a good spot, and Jack's been here 2 years now. So I think just the longer you have one coach, the more people are believing in him, and just yeah, I think it's exciting. I think I'm really excited to see where things go in these next couple of years. Certainly I know Hoka wants to grow the women's side more, and yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to.
You mentioned earlier about super shoes and how your experience at TMP1 was kind of your introduction to racing in super shoes. I mean, just in the last 5 years alone, when you think about how the sport has evolved, not just how super shoes have continued to evolve and elevate, but nutrition and the science around training and cross training seems like it's having a moment with more people maybe dialing down a little bit of their mileage and supplementing with cross training. How much of that science of the sport do you pay attention to? How much are you leaning on your coaches for that? Because there really is a lot to sort of digest and think about, especially today with all the advancements in technology and shoes.
Yeah, a lot has changed. Even yeah, you just in these last 5 years since when I first did it. And I try to stay on top of it to an extent. Like I will read things and listen to podcasts. But it can be hard. There's a lot of opinions out there. And I do feel like a lot, especially like, yeah, with the nutrition stuff kind of changed while I was in that pregnancy postpartum period. So, yeah, when I was getting back into fueling for long runs and workouts, I was asking a lot of questions and, yeah, was certainly asking Jack, picking his brain, just like how important is it to have electrolytes and gels, and like how many carbs should I really be aiming for in an hour right now, because there's studies saying all kinds of things. So it's a lot of trial and error, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to figure out what works for you. You can't necessarily just expect whatever this article says is best to work best for you. So I think that's something that I'll probably do a little bit more experimenting with in this build, just to see if I can continue to improve upon what I'm already doing. But I think Jack is really good about, like, he is very nerdy and sciencey, and he looks into all of that, and I really trust what he says.
You mean that in the most loving way, I'm sure, when he says very nerdy, of course.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how your second shot at the Marathon Project in December fits into the overall trajectory as you're thinking about 2026 and planning and this Olympic cycle. What are you hoping to specifically accomplish with this race when you look at how it fits into the fabric of your bigger picture goals?
Yeah, I'm hoping that this sets me up really well for 2026. I think, understandably, a lot of the world majors, they, to an extent, want you to prove yourself again after coming back from having a child. And hopefully that, I think I've done that to an extent, but I think having a good result at the Marathon Project is certainly going to help my case there for just, proving that I belong back in those elite fields, and that I can not only just be a part of it, but be really competitive near the front. I think that had been our hope for the marathon this past spring, was to do that, run fast and compete near the front. And unfortunately that didn't happen. So, it's almost like, okay, this is the next shot at that. And the good news is, like, I'll only have more fitness under my belt, right? I'll be a couple more months stronger. So it's like, I felt like I was in 224 shape back in June, and hopefully I'll be in even better shape come December. So I think it will hopefully set me up really well for the future.
And you have something else to plan for on race day. You have to have a baby Nolan plan for race day as well. Is he going to be alongside Cody cheering you on in Chandler on race day?
I'm sure he will. It'll be cool to have him at this one. We didn't bring him along to Grandma's because I have found, I think I took him to like one or two of my very first races back. And it's really hard for me to just like turn off my mom brain and focus, and get locked into competitive mode. So, we decided for Grandma's that just Cody would come along with me. But it's so easy to get him down from Flagstaff to Phoenix. He can come down the morning of, or he can go down with Grandma or something the night before. We'll see. But certainly, I'm sure he'll be out there for this one, which will make it extra special.
Yeah, it really will. Well, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person in Chandler. Wish you the best of luck in the build to get to the starting line. And thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Inside the Marathon Project.
Thanks so much for having me.
It is one project, one race, one pursuit. It is the Marathon Project. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Inside TMP.